Okay, I've got 1 o'clock. Is everybody ready?
Yep.
Yeah,
Ready, Phil?
I'm hereby calling to order the meeting of the Chesapeake Beach Ethics Commission on September 29th, 2020 at 1 p.m. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to
To the
to the
flag
flag of the United States
of
of America
and
and
to the
to the
republic
republic for
for which
which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice
justice for
for
all.
all. Thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes of the September 21st Ethics Commission meeting. They were distributed by Sharon. Does anyone have any corrections or additions?
No.
no.
Okay. And I particularly thank Sharon for the completeness of this. Right, without objection, the minutes of the September 21st meeting are approved. Next item is approval of the minutes of the September 22nd meeting. Anyone have any corrections or additions?
No.
No.
All right, without objection, the September 22nd minutes are approved. Thank you. All right. There had been on the 21st, we were noted that I was to notify Joshua Johnson that I asked him to clarify whether certain blanks meant that there were no mortgage holders, or if there were mortgage holders, he should provide the names, which he indeed has done. I sent you a draft motion, but I'm not even sure it's needed. What do you think?
No.
I don't think it's needed. No.
Okay. All right. I'm going to say for the record that Mr. Johnson did and has provided the necessary clarification and additional information. And that without objection, we're finding that the condition set on September 21st has been met. All right, next item on the agenda is determination of whether the town is in compliance with the state public ethics law, and if not, the status of efforts to bring it into compliance. Here, the complication is that a couple of days ago, the town attorney sent in the certification form signed by himself, and unfortunately told the state that our most recent ordinance was the one passed in 2017, and he attached it as the ordinance in effect right now. As a matter of principle, I'm strongly in favor of people doing too much as opposed to doing too little. And people, if they're asked to do something, they do it rather than keep saying, well, I'm not sure I'm authorized. But in this case, the ordinance is clear that we, the Ethics Commission, are to do more than just even more than just the ritual certification. We're to look at whatever ordinance is in effect at that time and either decide whether it's in compliance or to report to the state that, here are the defects and here's what the town's doing to correct them. So I think we ought to decide if there's any, if we're in compliance, and then if so, direct me to execute the certifications and submit them to the town, state commission, and then to consult with the town administrator and the town attorney to minimize any possible embarrassment to the town through a cover message. So the first question is,
With that, Phil, I mean, the fact is he's new to the town and I think it's minimal embarrassment. I think we should certainly go forward with our letter and our attachment. And then Holly and the attorney can craft up just a quick message and just say, hey, the official memo is coming from the Ethics Commission as required.
I agree.
okay. All right. Well, let's start with does anyone see any, it's funny, we talk in terms of the ordinance has to comply with state law. Actually, what it has to do is that with respect to elected officials, the conflict of interest and financial disclosure requirements are equivalent to or exceed the requirements of the state ethics law. Apparently, that's all we have to certify to. I guess our ordinance could otherwise violate the law right and left. But does anyone see anything where the conflict of interest and financial disclosure requirements for elected officials are deficient?
No,
No,
Phil, let me ask you, if I may, has the State Ethics Commission given the okay on the 2020 ordinance?
No. I meant to check that. They gave the pre-approval,
Right,
and nothing that was finally passed in February 2020 weakened any of that. I'm 99.9% sure that I emailed the February ordinance. And I think I've been presuming that because of the pandemic, the states moved kind of slowly on review. But yeah, it's a good question, and I'll follow up and report to everybody.
and let me just say that upon their preliminary review, if they had seen anything that they deemed to be not in compliance, my guess is, and my assumption is, they would have brought it to your attention at that time.
Absolutely, that is the point of the pre-approval or pre-review, which they strongly just be done. Personally, if it were up to me, I would say, nah, we'll pass whatever we want to, and they can review it after the town council's made its decisions. But in this case, we did submit it. Because I did, because it was taking so long between the time we finished our work and the time it would get to the town council for action. But yeah, my understanding, Fred, is the same as yours. If there had been anything that they saw was improper or failed to meet the standards, I believe they would have told us. So I'll do two things. One is I will forward to everybody the copy of the email that I think I sent to the state, or I'll send you an email saying, no, I couldn't find anything. And I assume that the reason they demand a copy of whatever's current ordinance is so that, in fact, if they want to, they can review it again. All right. All right. So without objection, the Ethics Commission has reviewed the current ethics ordinance and determined that its conflict of interest and financial disclosure requirements for elected local officials are equivalent to or exceed the requirements of the state ethics law. That's where that finding is adopted by unanimous consent. And the next thing is, I had suggested that the cover email that I use to send the form and the ordinance be something that would be jointly or crafted by the town administrator and the town attorney. And I think what Ingrid was suggesting, that I send the stuff, attached, please find, and leave it to the town administrator and the town attorney to send whatever they deem appropriate. Is that
Yeah, it sounds like a good strategy.
Yep.
okay? Well, what I'm going to do though is we have to do this by, I guess, well, actually it says on or before October 1st. It gives us a couple of days. I think what I'm going to try to do is hold off or give the other officials the opportunity to send in their correction or their notification first, and then send ours.
Agreed.
That would give them a couple of days. What day is today's the 29th? Yeah, so we got till October 1st. Okay. Does anyone, Mike, is that okay with you?
Yep, it sounds good.
I don't think we need to have a motion on that. All right. Next is, what documents related to financial disclosure must be made available for public review? And I'm suggesting that everything, all the forms be made available for public review. That is, whatever's the candidates originally submitted, plus any amendments. And I'm suggesting that, what I just said with one exception, I'll take that. I'm also suggesting that all the correspondence, which I believe in our case was all done by email, to and from a candidate be part of the public disclosure. But then I think we should redact with just a pen or a marker, black marker, the part of the cover sheet of the disclosures, which identify the official's home address and email address. I'm saying not home address, mailing address and email address. Because unlike everything else,
Phil, should we also get the phone number?
Hold on, sir. I thought
Yeah, because Randy suggests removing the phone number, the email
Right.
address, the date of
Yeah.
birth, and the mailing address.
Right, but let me see here. I don't see,
Yeah.
we don't ask for the phone number or date of birth.
Phil, if I may for 1 second, I took a look at the Public Information Act, and there would be no justification if somebody made a Public Information Act request, not under the ordinance, but under the state law, to review all financial disclosure forms that were filed. There'd be no justification for making the redactions you suggest.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying,
And the other thing I would say is that these are the forms that, at least for this year, that the commission had promulgated under your authority, under the ordinance.
okay,
So,
all right, just to double check. I thought Randy was correct in suggesting that the Public Information Act excludes from disclosure in general, things like mailing addresses and phone numbers.
no, it does not, Phil. I
Okay,
took a look at it this morning.
that's great.
Uh,
That makes things easier.
There is, let me just make this observation. In section 4-331 of the Public Information Act, a public body should deny inspection of part of a public record that contains a home address and telephone number of an employee, unless the employee gives permission, or unless the public body feels that there's a public interest in doing so. I don't know that candidates for elective office are employees at that point.
Okay,
And the other one, there's another section dealing with financial information, but
Yeah.
that does not apply to anything that we're talking about here. That's
Yeah.
a fairly narrow exception on certain types of financial information.
and I assume that the General Public Information Act is superseded by the requirements of the ethics law.
That's an issue that may have to be addressed at some point in time. I think they probably have to be read together.
Okay, well, in any event, the main thing is your legal advice is that my suggestion of redacting certain things is not legally required.
It's not legally required. That's correct.
Okay. Mike and Ingrid,
I had a question about the emails. You were talking about providing all of them. Is that something we really want to do?
I don't want to. But Fred's saying that if we redact it, then we're going to have to unredact as soon as we respond to an information request.
Okay,
But we don't have his birth data,
right.
and we don't have telephone numbers. Which I think, and I'm looking at a financial disclosure statement. The cover sheet shows a post office box as a mailing address. That's not. So, Mike, you got any strong feelings?
No, I think, let's go with Freddie. I mean, if we don't have to redact, let's not redact.
And Phil, let me distinguish between two things. One is the commission's responsibility to make electronic media available of the financial disclosure form available to the public. Now that could be a PDF, that could be on the website, whatever. The ordinance doesn't specify, and that's not your responsibility under the Public Information Act. Now,
Right. Okay.
if somebody files with Sharon, the town clerk or the custodian of records, Public Information Act request, seeking to view and inspect all communications between the Ethics Commission and a filer relating to a disclosure form, that would be something that the town would have to deal with under the MPIA, not something that the Ethics Commission would necessarily have to deal with.
Yeah, I guess, but why not? Well, it's up to us.
Yeah.
There's no legal impairment to our providing in the PDF or whatever it is going online, copies of the emails back and forth. Is there? I mean, that's.
No,
our question.
yeah.
You're good.
I was gonna say, no, I don't see any impediment or a prohibition against putting those communications online also if you want to do so. It goes beyond what you're required to do, but I would say it's certainly within the realm of your authorization.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, then we are, I think sometime in the future, we should address this as part of our rules of procedure. I know I found this pretty stressful last couple of weeks because we've never done it before. And also stressful because the result of doing it wrong could be blocking somebody from running for office.
Well, that was something I wanted to bring up, because I saw in Randy's email, we talked about this whole concept of facially complete. And we've
Yeah.
used it as our standard, yet Randy brings up the point that the candidates would still be certified even if their thing is incomplete. So I had a hard time believing that. Is that accurate? Because then working against is wrong.
Well, may I
Yeah.
try to respond to that? And I think you have to distinguish between your commission's obligation and responsibility and the responsibility of the election board.
Yeah.
And if the election board is ultimately responsible for certifying candidates, whether they do it right or whether they do it wrong, after receiving the advice or non-advice that you may give them with respect to any particular financial disclosure form, that's not within your particular bailiwick. They can be called to task for certifying somebody improperly, but I don't know if there's anything that you as a commission can do about that.
Well, it seems like we need to get our two commissions working on a parallel track so that we both in the same standard.
Yeah.
We're feeding them what we think, yet then we're using one standard and they're using something else, and it seems incongruous and confusing.
Yeah. Well, and remember, this particular language was, I believe, suggested by or requested by the Board of Elections.
I know it. We need to get on the same track here.
Yeah. So let's we'll put that on the agenda for sometime in the future to, have the Board of Elections and us sit down and, if it's of no use for us to determine whether a disclosure is facially incomplete, if that's not going to be of use, that information is not of use, then let's not bother spending our time dealing with it.
Well, yes, especially since we went to extraordinary extra efforts in order to plug some of those holes. And, we also put the candidates through some extra paces as well. Then, you look at that and say, why did we just go through all of that?
Yeah, I can't agree more.
Yeah,
So
Phil, I just saw a note from Holly that Randy Getman is on the call if you need him or want him for anything.
Okay, at this point, I don't think we do.
Okay.
All right, so that's that. I think the last thing on the agenda is whether, as a matter of state law or public policy, must or should the commission report to somebody on any apparent conflicts of interest revealed by the disclosures. And that's point is suggested by Council Member Morris. And does anyone think that now keep in the back of your mind, one of the amendments that we made that was adopted in February was that although the standard process would be somebody would file a complaint of a violation, we can investigate matters that come to our attention otherwise, other than with a complaint, as for example, what's shown in a financial disclosure document. But the question that Mr. Morris was asking was that, well, actually, let me read this into the record. Does Maryland state ethics law require the ethics commissioners to report on unusual contents of these disclosures? After listening to the attorney's comment of that night, I don't know what night, it seems that language requiring, underlined, a report of apparent conflicts be sent to the town council or public well-being entity for review and action, not just a statement that all the blanks have been fully filled in. There needs to be a watchdog aspect to the contents approved and submitted.
Phil, a question of clarification. Since there are only candidates, okay, there's no real standing. we have no jurisdiction on somebody that may or may not get into office, right?
That's a very good, yep,
Good point.
yeah, yeah. And then we had to go back to the discussion we've just had. It certainly, the current ordinance does not provide for the Ethics Commission to advise the voters of anything related to what's disclosed. The voters will have the disclosures and will infer whatever they want. But yeah, I don't think, the town council can amend the ordinance to give us that responsibility, but I don't see that we have it.
But then what about as a matter of public policy? Maybe there's not a requirement, but it seems to me that we should be, I don't want to use that word watchdog that Mr. Morris used, but I think we should be using our brains and thinking, and we have done that with some of the disclosures. I can think of one council person who would reported one thing one year and then something else, and we looked at it and said, hey, this is incongruous here, and what's the answer? So
On the annual review, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But similarly too, it just seems like we shouldn't be flying with a blind eye either. It's like we need to have some level of interpretation, I think.
Mhm.
Well, Ingrid, I think that may be part of the reason why why you make such a minimal report to the election board, that whether it's facially incomplete or defective, because again, these are only candidates, and as a candidate, they're not necessarily held to the same precise standard as an official is. Once they if any of them are elected, at that point, they'll be elected officials. And then I think it more falls within your jurisdiction to review and perhaps take action on. And the other thing is that I know most ordinances, I'm sorry, I didn't look at yours today to check on this, but issues relating to possible complaints and possible violations, most places are confidential until there's been a determination that there in fact has been a violation. And I'm not sure, and I think the commission ought to think, hard about whether you want to throw yourself into the electoral process, with the voters, and offering, making available the commission's own, thinking and commentary about the content of financial disclosure forms that have been filed in connection with a certificate of candidacy. That's ultimately your decision, but this will come to mind as I think about it.
I agree, Fred. I hear exactly what you're saying. It's kind of a slippery slope. It seems though maybe some of the answer is coordinating with the Board of Elections to see what they see as their role.
Mhm.
And how that coordinates with us and what we're providing them. I think the answer may lie there.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, just to follow up on what Fred was saying, so let's say that a candidate, a non-incumbent candidate's disclosure shows that he's president of a corporation that has a multi-year contract with the town. If he's elected, we may have to do stuff on our own initiative.
Right.
As long as he's, till he's elected, there's no violation of anything. It's not against the law to run, I guess. But again, this is grist. We need to, now that I think this crush is over for us, sometime later in the year, look at all these types of things and, review either our rules of procedure or recommend changes to the ordinance. So, to reflect the fact that we now have experience with these election disclosures.
I agree, Phil. And I guess, to carry your example a little bit further, let's say you do have that person who's the CEO of a company and he decides I'm going to run. I guess it's possible he doesn't realize that, oh, wow, if I do get elected, then I've got to do something and
I've got to
change.
lose my job.
Right. So do they know that? How would they know that?
Okay. That maybe we should
They may not be.
undertake, put in our
Yes.
rules that before the election, we do some kind of briefing for all candidates or potential candidates.
Phil, if I may, I know some of the jurisdictions I work with as part of their electoral process, they provide a copy of the local ethics ordinance along with the election packet so that the candidates have it. And if they choose to do so, and to the extent they choose to do so, they can become familiar with it.
Okay, great. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, that also fits in with Ingrid's suggestion that we really work with the Board of Elections.
Yeah, because one thing is providing a copy of the ordinance. It's kind of big and hairy looking.
Yeah,
Average person, I don't know if they're going to get through the document and that they're going to be able to flesh out, oh, this means, X, Y, to me.
well, we could have I'm sorry.
That's okay. No. I
have
agree.
a training package for candidates.
I think that might be a value.
Okay.
Not for
Yep.
the round, of course, but maybe for future ones.
Yeah. Okay, so the answer to the question posed in the agenda is no. We do not see any requirement or desirability of the commission reporting on finding apparent conflicts of interest in the disclosures and reporting on them. So that's unanimous consent. The next item on the agenda is schedule the next meeting of the commission. Where are we? Here in September. I usually go on a long vacation in October, but
Yeah, not
not
here.
allowed this year.
Can we do it in November after an election? Is there a reason that we need
Yeah,
it?
I don't see why not. Let me get a calendar. All right, November. Election day is Tuesday the 3rd. Veterans Day is the 11th.
No, Thursday's the 12th.
Thursday's the 12th. Okay, well, what is,
It seems like Wednesdays are working pretty well for us.
Right.
but is November 11th a holiday?
Yeah, that's Armistice Day.
Yeah, that would be,
Is it recognized that day? I thought it's usually I don't know. It's not a Monday? I guess not. Okay.
anyone have any problem with the 10th?
No, that sounds
No.
good.
Yeah.
The 10th works for me.
Sharon? Okay,
That's
Well-
good. It's good.
1 o'clock?
1 o'clock, I just put down 10. Okay, so next meeting is November 10th at 1 PM. Under the rules of procedure, I can call a meeting earlier than that if for some reason, but our next scheduled meeting, next regular meeting. All right. Comments
Phil-
by
Phil-
commissioners?
Phil-
Yes,
Yeah, I assume that that'll be a virtual meeting unless we hear otherwise.
that's right. Yep, yep. I, for one, am not finding the virtual meeting to be less efficient than the face-to-face meetings we had.
I agree.
I'm so pleasantly surprised. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'll call for an adjournment. Those in favor of adjourning indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Be-
everybody.
Be healthy and safe.
Yeah. Well, much to debate tonight.